Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Survivor Global for Survivor 47. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here to discuss week 3, very sad week in RHAP, that one of our own, Asia Welsh, was voted out. Made it to week 3 in a 6-person tribe, which is apparently the place where RHAP people go home, which has been a bit of a talking point this week. It's very upsetting, but I do have something to cheer us up, a great guest to talk about this episode, someone I always love talking about Survivor with. It is the great Harry Hills. Harry, thank you for being here.
No, thanks for having me. Really like to be here. We've made it like an annual thing now. October is the time.
Yeah, not on purpose. I just I'm like, well, what about Harry? that's a bit of a glimpse into my thinking, into the production side, where I'm like, Harry, and then you're here, and that's great. But I say that it will cheer people up, but it probably won't, because every week what I'm really doing is being like, here are the people who are not on Australia versus the world. My guest, Harry Hills. People are so upset about it, Harry, that you're here with me. Although technically, I think you could kind of be here with me and do both, maybe, if you'd really hustled. So,
well,
but you're not on the season. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to be on the season. It has been a whirlwind the whole pre-season. People talking more than they should, and it's just a funny thing. Whenever they have returnee seasons, it's like there's just like a buzz. It's like finals football. It's just a weird thing, and everyone just sort of starts getting like a bit into it. Obviously, can't go into details, but it's been this really interesting ride going from it getting told to players, known to players, all the way up until obviously today, where things are basically done.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about, and now we'll just wait.
Yes, now we have the horrifying wait where we have to actually see where they decide they're going to like put it on television.
Yeah, the horrifying wait. I love it being described as that. That's great. Yeah, and Shawnee's been announced, your fellow rascal.
Yes.
My friend George, he's on it. They probably have beef. How are you feeling looking into it? Are you excited about it, or is this like, yeah, I mean, Australia versus the world, it is kind of crazy that it's happening.
Yeah, and I think it's a who's who, and I think it's also a mixture of players that you could make assumptions about how they're going to play. But then there's also like the little personal relationships. There's things that you might not expect. There's things that do happen behind the scenes. And so it's a really weird mix in terms of they've got very like prominent relationships. They've also got things that are sort of not so prominent. And so I don't think it will be as easy to predict as people assume. I think that there will be interesting relationships that happen, because you kind of just expect people to just stay in their circles, because I'm not going to go into spoilers or anything like that, but obviously like people have past relationships, but yeah, I think you can't go in with assumptions. So I'm just excited for it, really. I think that there's a lot of players with potential there.
Yeah, well, I'm excited as well, and yeah, we'll just like hunker down for the horrifying wait, as you've said, and sort of get it on television. But how have you been since last October? Was it since we spoke?
Since last October. Yeah, good.
Yeah. How are you?
Things are going well. I moved yesterday, so I'm here at my mom's house doing this.
Yeah.
Very, very clean move. We've done well. I've got my coffee. I've got my protein shake, which also for some reason has caffeine in it. So that's really good. Keeping busy. Gonna go bungee jumping later. No, that's just a joke from anyone who listened to last week.
If not, how dare you? But no, honestly, like I don't know what is a scarier prospect, bungee jumping or moving. Like doing this on moving weekend is truly a gift to us, because moving is like, I think anyone who's ever moved can say, like that's the horrifying thing. Moving, like the worst human experience, truly. So the fact that you moved this weekend and yet you're still here on the podcast, is unbelievable, Harry. Human. Thank you so much.
I don't get people who do it like every 6 months. Like some people like, oh yeah, like find a new rental place, like find a new spot. Every 6 months. I've moved like 3 times in my life, and I want to do it as little as possible.
Yeah. I moved around a lot as a kid, but then I wasn't doing anything. My parents were moving and I was just with them. It was still honestly pretty tough, not to go into my whole childhood, but we moved a lot. But now that I'm an adult and I have to move myself, I try not to do it a lot, because it is horrendous. So,
and it's not just the moving itself, it's also the process of just like looking at things and being like, why do I have this? Like,
Man,
I
it's the
don't need
worst.
this.
I know.
But then you don't want to get rid of it.
Yeah. Oh, there should be like a word for like, it's not like the Mary Kondo stuff. It's like that middle group, like basically the chair stuff. You know how you have like a chair when stuff isn't clean or dirty? There should be a version of that of stuff you don't want to keep or throw out.
Yeah, but you don't
Like,
want to throw it away. You're like, oh, it could be valuable.
yeah.
We
One day I
did
might
get
need
rid of
this.
stuff. We got rid of stuff before, and now we kind of like, oh, that actually would have been handy to have like that extra chair or stool, or whatever. So now it's going to be even worse from this point on. Now that we've like had that experience as well. But anyway,
Well done, honestly, because that takes a lot of guts. Like that's a tough one. So you should be proud of yourself for moving and culling some chairs, and now you're here sitting on at least one chair with me, and I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy to talk about Survivor. Happy to talk about US Survivor, especially. One of my favorite things to do.
Yes. Okay. Big episode, as I said. Really big decisions. I feel like this was so complicated, and everyone has a different take on it to a degree. Like, how much was Asia twist screwed, or how much did she have to do with it, or how much was it on Teeny, or like did Teeny and Keyshawn do the right thing? How are you feeling about the season in general before we get into like the nitty gritty of all of that?
I like the direction they're going. I think this season in particular, like I feel like we always talk when it's like a little bit too early in the season to kind of decide. So at the moment, like I've got people I really like. There's no one who I'm like obsessed with, but as a whole, I really like the direction they're taking. Like, you know, we've got these longer episodes so you can really get to know people. Starting to see a few more things where it's like just them at camp, or just seeing a bit more insight into the person. So I really like that. That's the part when I'm watching, especially post playing, I feel like I really appreciate some of the nuance. And I feel like that is something we've actually got maybe like this season and last season is a bit more depth. Like I think especially all the players we're probably going to talk about the most, people like Rome is a perfect example where you've actually got depth to them. Like, yes, they've got their character and like Rome is abrasive and that sort of thing, but he's also like shown that he's actually a good player, and then he's also shown that he's got personality on top of that. So you've actually got layers to it. It's not just this like one-dimensional, I don't like him because he did this and just that cut off. So from that perspective, I'm really enjoying how much depth we're actually seeing of some of them, at least so far.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of what we get of Rome is in like brutal montages of his antics. Yeah,
but I don't know. It's a funny one, and I think there is a lot to argue about, and I think that there'll be a lot of people on, you know, Twitter, Reddit, that sort of thing, arguing about it because it is nuanced. I mean, you look at him going and getting fish and then eating half of it for himself. I mean, one person will say that's fair. He did go out and get all the fish himself. So he's only taking half of it. And then another person is like, you're an idiot. It's a social game. Why wouldn't you just share your fish? It's not that big anyway. And I think maybe the true answer is like somewhere in the middle. Again, there's like depth to it, but it is also an example of you can't, even if you're doing the right things, you can still become a pariah if you're not fitting in with everything around you. And so like if other people are chilling and you're the one, you know, going and doing the pot and fishing and all that sort of thing, like it might seem like, oh, like I'm being the workhorse and this is great, but sometimes people just don't care. Like people will still want to get rid of you anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely fall into the camp of like, you know, earn your social capital. Like if you found the fish, like what you're not eating all the fish, but what you're gaining is social capital. That's where I would lean anyway. But even more so because it's like he wouldn't let anyone use the fishing gear. And then it's like, but then I caught all the fish. It's like, but you didn't give anyone else the chance. So I think that's like the thing with Rome. I mean, like there's a lot of layers to Rome. Like I'll spoil it now. Like for someone I'm going to give 3 Chissy points to, there's a lot to criticize. You know, this is someone who has very little game awareness, seemingly very little self-awareness. Those are important skills in Survivor. You know, that's usually what I talk about as like the most important things. And I recently wrote an article for The Confessional about like how you accrue social capital to spend it. And I think in ways Rome has done that with his advantages, but I think largely it's through just barreling through the game. Like it's not as much about like making the relationships and then, you know, like using those relationships. It's more about like somewhat again with like, you know, Teeny said he's shown loyalty, but like intimidation. You know, that's like the fear that he's striking into people's hearts. And I did say in the article that is one way to accrue social capital, but you know, the check doesn't necessarily clear. And like everything Rome has done in terms of like individually looking for idols and like alienating himself are things that I wouldn't condone, but it has worked. And I think that he's someone I wouldn't really think has a chance to win, and I don't think so anyway still, but I think this is his best shot to play this kind of game where he's full tilt and he barrels through the game and he does the most and he pulls people over and they're overwhelmed by it, maybe even against their best interest, definitely against their best interest, and that's how he gets people on side. And it's very unorthodox, and it's like a Drea game, or even like, you know, the way Ben Driebergen eventually had to play, and it's just like one type of game. And I think it's his best shot, and I think that's what he's doing, but it's not something that I would go out and preach.
Yeah, no. I think there's like a lot to criticize, but at the same time, it's almost like he just looks at it differently. And I think the best example is the fact that weren't they looking at his idol box and then he just like walks in? And I don't remember him really getting very upset about it, did he? Like, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, but like,
I think he played that well.
Yeah, and so it's this sort of interesting thing where maybe he just looks at it differently. And I was probably guilty of this when I first played, and as the first week is you go in there and you've been a Survivor fan for, you know, like decades or however long it is.
He started watching last year, but I understand.
Yeah, I guess maybe on his case he's just amped up. He's a competitor. So maybe he's amped up to just go gung-ho, and he's expecting everyone else to play that way as well. And it doesn't work that way. Like, everyone's going to play differently, and you're supposed to be more flexible. So obviously he's not picking up on that, and that's a very bad thing, that he's trying to go so aggressively into everything. Part of me thinks he just wants the experience as well, though. He was being a little bit of a he's being very immature when they were sort of doing that pre-planning for the challenge, and just sort of being very demanding, be like, no, like I got to do this. Like, I'm going to be angry at everyone if I don't get my way. And like, he was not wording it well. Like, there's ways that you could probably get your way and not have it look that bad. But I mean, he actually backed it, which you got to respect as well. Like, and that's where he does have depth to him. Like, normally we get edits of these characters and it's like they include that and then they just bomb. Like, you'll see it's like Andy a Debbie or something like that.
Andy literally did it on the mat next to him. Yes,
you'll have this sort of like edit where it's like they deliberately show them being overconfident, and then it's like like massive fail, like funny music. Oh, look at him like fail on the balance beam. But yeah, Rome actually backed it. So like, you got to respect some of it, definitely. Like, he's more of a strategist than a social player, and I don't think it's going to carry him super far. But I mean, he's getting the full experience. He's finding things, and he's managed to strong arm people. So I can't fault him 100%. Like, it's working for him. I don't think it'll work to the end either, but I think it's working for him now.
Yeah, I think Rome is a very aggressive player in any context, and especially with this cast in preseason, we're very much like, I don't want to go on the journey. I don't want it to be about advantages. Like, we come with 46, we know it. Like, idols are a curse. And it was funny, like, Gabe had that montage. Gabe hadn't even seen all of those people go home with an idol. Like, they left half, partway through the season. He hadn't even seen, I think, like, Q. I think maybe just Q, but like, still, it was going to add to it. So this cast, like, specifically, I think, are not wanting to play Rome's game. So that alienates him even more. But then, like, I think in many ways he's outpacing them, and we can talk about like how he's the one who goes on the journey, and he's the one who puts his hand up for everything, and then he gains the things other people don't want. He's the one hustling, looking in a way that other people don't want to do as much. And again, I like that type of gameplay. I want people to be cohesive and communal and, you know, social rather than advantage based and individual as he's been. But then he's so far outpacing them in that, and then using it well. So I'm definitely gonna be praising Rome. As I said, I think he's a clear like 3 Chissy points here, and I don't even see a clear 2. So he has all the power. But like, before we get to him, I'd love to talk about Teeny and Keyshawn, who have like the main choice here of who they're gonna go with. Why do you feel like they made this move? Like, get in their headspace of how you feel this went for them.
Look, I think it all depends on context. Like, everything is context in Survivor. It all depends on the exact situation that you're in. And they're sort of looking at, I mean, it's pretty much a 2-2-2. Like, that's what we've been kind of shown. Like, we've been shown that it's like Sol and Aisha, and then let me check my actual notes, like Roman, Genevieve, Teeny, and Kishan.
Yeah.
And they can pretty much go either way, which means that, I mean, to me, that's the true power, the fact that they can technically go either way. Like you can make arguments both ways. You can make arguments that they could absolutely aggressively play that situation. But I mean, I'm looking at that as well. And you've got Genevieve and Rome on one side, and Rome is a clear lightning rod. And then you've got a lot of danger there as well. And then you've got Aisha on the other side. They did show a little bit of what was kind of happening where Teeny was trying to sort of get through it, trying to sort of see whether they would be more flexible or something like that, open to like voting for one of their own to survive. I mean, you can't really judge it as if they are this, long-term player that fully understands how to manipulate these situations. Because, I mean, they've never been to a tribal before. Like, none of these players have. So you really have to treat it like it is like a first tribal. So to have that sort of insight does actually show that Teeny is extremely smart, because most players don't fully understand all that sort of ramifications that come with every single vote, like until you've done a lot of them. So the fact that she was even trying to keep her hands clean, was good, that she was trying to sort of see if that would actually work. To me, I mean, it all just comes down to context. They're the third tribe to actually go to vote someone out. From a statistics point of view, they're probably going to only go down to like 4, probably, just off the numbers. I literally did the maths. Has anyone actually done the maths of like the meta as it stands right now, like 41 till now with you?
In terms of what?
So, all right. So basically, you've had 18 tribes. We're talking 41 to 46 because we haven't finished 47, obviously. So 18 tribes. How many of those do you think have made it to merge as either a 4 or a 5?
Yeah, I think I did do this math actually, but like a while ago. Other than the disaster tribes, like, yeah, you're not going to more than a tribal or 2. How many disaster tribes have we had? So what, out of 18 tribes, we've had so many disaster tribes. I don't know, I'll say 14.
It feels like a lot.
14 tribes haven't been to more than 2 tribals, max.
So almost perfect, it's 13. So it's like 13.
But then does that count? That includes like Medivacs and stuff as well. So
yeah,
think about that. Yeah.
But it's still, I mean, if you're just looking at numbers, like you've got a reasonable chance if you just make a core 3 or a core 4, you've got really, really good chance of just making it to merge. And then if you decide that that's going to be with a lightning rod like Rome, then all of a sudden you've at least got your foot in the door, because it really feels in the modern era that you need that little bit of breathing time in the mid game to just sort yourself out and try and like push other threats so that you can get through. So really, if you get there with a 4, one of them is a clear person who everyone will just point at, then all of a sudden you've like automatically made it through to like the best part of the game. So to me, I think Teeny, like she went through all the options. Kishan, we didn't really get to see that, but obviously he's showing a lot of patience, because you can see his like facials where Rome starts talking and he's just like trying to hold it in. So he's obviously got a lot of patience in the stuff we see, but they trying to suss it out, how things would actually go. To me, I think if you're anyone in that tribe, like you've already had 2 people out of the likely 6 eliminated from the game, just take the easy option. Like if you're in a 4, in any kind of 4, I would just take it. So if you've got the easy way with Rome being the lightning rod, I would take it personally.
I'm going to contradict myself a bit, because there's a lot of what you're saying that I agree with, and that I've done my own math around, and this is for people like Asia and even Kyle. It's like, because Kyle's offered, maybe just Tiana in front of him. I would take that if I'm on the bottom, because if you just get to a 4, that could be good enough. Like I did my own math that 44% chance that your tribe is never going back to a tribal council, assuming a merge at 13, which I think is a pretty good assumption. There's only 2 challenges left. Definitely one of these tribes will never go back to tribal council if that's the case. There's 3 tribes, only 2 chances to go to tribal council, let alone a tribe could lose twice. So you don't know where you're going to stand in that, but the odds are pretty good that if you're on the bottom, you just need to survive. And when we talk about someone like Asia, that would be my criticism around, like, if you're on the bottom, which she didn't know, and that's the criticism. But if you like someone like Andy, pushes John. Maybe they never go back to tribal council. Maybe just getting through that is the merge, let alone the other opportunities that have opened up for Andy. So if you're on the bottom, I do think anyone but me, it's a good tagline for a reason.
Yeah.
And then you get through, just getting through one. Like, as an example, Marianne just got through that one tribal council where Mariah went and then got new life with the merge and won. So I think that can be it when you're on the bottom. I think where I'm more critical of it for Teenie and Keyshawn is that I don't think they need to be that dire about it. Like, sure, you could maybe get to a 4, but I don't think they just need to get to anything. They were in power, and I feel like now they've lost that power and control. So that's part of the criticism where I feel like I could expect more from a pair that was in such a good spot. The other part of the criticism that I have is leaving Rome and Genevieve in with a vote steal. They could use it.
They
next
have the
time
power.
Yeah, like even for one more tribal council, they have the power.
That is the interesting thing then. How much does Teenie actually know? Like, do they know the exact rules of the stealer vote? Was it like shown? Like, or did he just say that he's going to steal a vote?
Yeah, instead of vote. So like they know a vote steal.
Yeah, okay. So then you know that going down going down to 5 people, that means that as long as Rome has one ally, he basically controls the vote at 5.
And he does.
So then you can split it 2-2-2. He plays his idol, and then it's a 2-2 on Genevieve. Vote Genevieve out, and then Rome doesn't have any power. But then you have a crazy Rome who is specifically angry at Keyshawn and Teenie, and then you increase your chance of, if you do go back, you could be in danger.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, like you can sort of see everything tick over, and I don't think it's this thing where you have to be harsh on any one decision. But to me, it got to the point where yes, you're giving up power, but you're also with someone who's been since day one sharing all their information with you and trying to build something. And Rome, even though he's aggressive, he would still want to sort of build some sort of thing. He wouldn't want to go into merge with like no one and just be this guy with advantages and that sort of thing. Like, you still need people to have power. So he wouldn't actively be trying to like destroy his tribe unless he realized he was on the bottom.
Well, for me, if I was Rome or Teenie and Keyshawn, like how I try to go forward would depend on like where I lose the next challenge. Because if you lose the next one and now you've lost 2 in a row, you could fear that you're going to lose even one more before a merge. And at that point, if I'm Teenie, then I'm thinking, oh, if we just vote out Sol here, now we're going to a 4 where he has a vote steal. If I'm Rome, I'm thinking, oh, they won't want to do that. I should get one on them in case they're trying to come for me to not do that. So I should use my vote steal at 5 to ensure that I have the numbers so that they can't come for me, then it's sure. But I don't want to go down to a 2-2 with no vote steal. So I will vote out like a Teenie or a Keyshawn and keep a Sol and be in like a 2-1-1 situation. If I'm like, if I was forward planning and being very aggressive, which Rome is, that's how I would think about it. And he has the power to do it. Like, it's putting it in Rome's hands where he is somewhat erratic and he is an aggressive player. And we have the confessional, and I hope it's not like Chekhov's confessional where he has distrust of Teenie while they've bridged it. You know, he did walk up on Teenie showing Keyshawn the idol last week. So I hope that doesn't kind of come back to bite Teenie in that. So it's putting it in Rome's hands. That's my criticism. And I feel like we can like go to what Teenie actually said, which was basically that they felt overwhelmed by Rome and scared. I think they actually used the word scared and felt like they should kind of steer into the current. And I guess, see it because I think it is difficult. Like when someone has so many advantages and you're like up against it, I see that. But I also think there were workarounds to take it on. And I feel like the juice was worth the squeeze for the couple of reasons of not giving Rome all that power. And also because I feel like Asia and Sol were a better long-term working group for Teenie and Keyshawn. So I feel like that makes it worth it to take it on.
Yeah. It's a hard one though, because you are asking a lot of a first-time travel. Like imagine going into a first tribal ever and it being this 2-2-2 where everything has to go exactly as you planned. The idol has to the idol will get played. So that's sort of like variable out. But like you do need to make sure that every single one of the other 5 players is voting exactly how they say they're going to vote, which is not the confidence level you have going into a first tribal. Like I had a very, very simple first tribal and it still felt like you just didn't have that level of confidence. Like you try and like show confidence because like that makes other people more reassured, and then you just get the result that you want. But even in a simple vote, my first time, I was like, well, I don't know like where I stand. Like, are there other things that like I just haven't seen? Like, is there going to be like 7 votes that like I just had no idea they were coming from? So it is asking a lot to not go with the safe thing. I think they have given up a lot of power, but I don't think they're in the situation where Rome will abuse it. It has put them at risk. So I guess it's just, it's more you're looking at it not from a point of power. If like, again, it's context. If it was like a 10-person tribe, if it's like 2 tribes of 10, then yeah, you're going to try and like get rid of the power player. But if they're going to merge after like 1 more tribe, or like that's likely, then I would probably just relinquish power and just sort of hope for the best, basically.
I have enormous sympathy for Teeny because all my thoughts around this, I think there were workarounds where Teeny can keep the power and have the better option, which is Asia and Seoul, and definitely Asia as an ally. But like all my plans are like convoluted and like written in like extensive notes where I'm like well fed and I've slept and like, well, it was daylight savings today. Okay, I lost that hour. But and even so, like, yeah, and it's hurting my brain. So with all of that, like I do feel sympathy for Teeny because I think it is all very convoluted, but I still think that there is a workaround that's worth it because I wouldn't put it in Rome's hands. It's like I don't think Rome will abuse it, but he can. And I just don't like that. And I think that Rome is a lightning rod and a shield to a degree, but also a much worse ally for the kind of game that Teeny is going to want to play, being such a social player. And I'm saying Teeny, but I mean the like Tishon duo because it is the two of them doing that. But like as a pair that has been so social and had all the relationships, like Rome's going to go into a merge and put people off. Whereas like having especially Asia, I think would be someone who would make allies. Like you need a group. You don't go into a merge of a 3-person of the 3-tribe format with a majority. You need to make new allies. So I feel like Rome, while being a shield, is also like, you know, a bit of a kind of distractor socially and will put people off. And that is a negative thing. So yeah, I think that that's probably a con as well. But I think for me, like at first I thought for Teeny, because at the, like we take it back to 42 at the Vati Tribal Council where we had some similarities in that Daniel Strunk and Janelle were in the middle and they were between Jenny and Mike, who they wanted to work with, and then Hai and Lydia, who they wanted to work with less. And then at the point where Chanel and Mike had lost their votes, I was like, okay, even if you want to work with them more, if you want to work with Mike and Jenny more, you can't. It's now untenable. And because you're Schrodinger's swing vote, you haven't actually chosen a side. Like you're on both sides to this point until you draw a line in the sand, which Teeny didn't want to do. You can still make the decision. And I wanted them to make the decision that was tenable at that point, which was to go with Hai and Lydia. So part of me felt like, yes, if it feels untenable, go with Roman Genevieve. And you were always with Roman Genevieve. No one can say otherwise. But I would prefer, and given that I think there is a workaround, I would rather have taken it on because I don't feel it was as untenable as 42. And I think my workaround, which is possibly too convoluted, 7 days on the beach, first tribal council. But if the fear is we're going to split 2-2-2, but he has a vote steal, so that could ruin it. That could take away the 2-2. You have all the information.
It is scary. Yeah.
Yeah, but what you do is the vote still has to be played before the vote. So if he plays it, then, or if he doesn't play it, that's great. We can split our 2-2-2 and you do it. I think leaving Rome, Genevieve, and the vote still in together is the thing for me that I wouldn't want to do. That is too dangerous. So what I would do is, yeah, if he doesn't play it, we split. If he does play it, you've gone to Asia and you've said, this is what's happening. You've already told her about the idol. You've already left that as a loose end in case you're going to have to go with Rome and Genevieve. Just extend that information to be like, he also has a vote still. So we want to work with you. What we're going to do is we're going to do the 2-2-2. If he plays it, then we're on Seoul. Then it's too late. Then we literally have nothing. We cannot split the vote, let alone they would, win at a tie, assuming he uses the vote still correctly. So
does Asia know about the idol then? And
Asia
Seoul?
knows about the idol, yeah. Keyshawn, we see tell Asia about the idol, but we don't know about Seoul. But he doesn't know about the vote steal. If they did that, then they can say, plan is we're going to really try save Seoul. We're going to do 2-2-2. And if he steals a vote, we're voting out Seoul. That will really suck. We don't want to do it, but we have no other option. We've put it off you. But we are going to come back to a tribe of 5 where Rome and Genevieve are together, but they don't have the vote steal. He will have had to use all of his ammo to do that, and then at least to come back with a sure majority, which Teeny and Kishan don't currently have. And I think to me it's convoluted. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's too much to expect possibly, but to me that's
I think it's too much to expect of starting players, but also I don't know. I think the onus is probably on Aisha and Sol. Sol seems very smart. He seems very able to read people. They saw that scene where he basically just said that like Rome was full of it, and he just said that he was like lying to him, which was a good sort of read that Rome was just sort of bullshitting. To me, I think the onus is probably on them. But it's whether they realize that they're the ones on the bottom or not. Which
they don't have all the information.
Aisha did, yeah. So I think it came down to just half measures on Teeny and Kishan's part. Like, I think that they wanted to play this middle and they wanted everything to work out perfectly and clean, but they really needed to be decisive. Like, and they needed to kind of get their hands dirty one way or the other. And like, technically they did. They made the choice that they made. I think it's a 50-50. Like, you can relinquish power, but play the numbers and the idea that you're probably only going to go back one more time. And then you've got a very, very clear buffer. Like, you've got the buffer person in Sol. So basically it would need to go back 2 more times before you actually are going to get.
Well, assuming that Rome doesn't use the vote steal in a crazy way at 5. And to me, that's just putting too much expectations on Rome. And maybe that's Teeny's skill is managing a personality like Rome. And I don't think that's untrue.
Yeah.
I just think that that's not how I'd like my power to be. If I look at where they came in, they all came into this episode. Like, Rome's at the top of the tribe. Rome has all the options, all the power. Like, I'm crediting that. And Teeny, I felt, who did such good work and had alliances with every person, I feel has relinquished a lot of that out of fear. And I don't like a confessional where it's like, I'm scared and I'm overwhelmed by this person. Like, that is Rome winning. Like, that is Rome gaining on Teeny in a way that, like, if Teeny's not doing it out of agency, Teeny's doing, like, not finding the workaround out of fear, and I think it was worth taking it on for Teeny.
But it is exponential as well, because it's like, let's say you just have an idol, like, that's a little bit scary in itself.
I get it.
Like,
it is scary.
But it's not that scary because it's like it's 2024, everyone sort of knows, like, I can split.
Everyone's got an idol. I have an idol.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Who doesn't have an idol? Yeah.
But then exponentially, if you have someone who's just like, well, I'm immune. Like, I'm just playing the idol on myself. I'm immune. And I also have other things that I can play with no immediate ramifications. That I feel like, to someone who's literally never been to a tribal council, if you have someone say they literally can't be voted out and they have other things, then it's like this like exponential scariness. Like, it's way more than just having one or the other. It's like they're literally invincible. And then people, when they have that and they know they're going to play with a lot more confidence. Like, people that just know that, you know, I've got an idol, I'm going to play it, I'm going to be fine. Like, you really have the sort of thing of, like, you can just push things. I know when I played, there was a couple of times where I was like that. Was like, well, I know I'm safe, so I'm just going to like really push people at tribal and just like force a narrative or an agenda or something like that. And people can sense it. When I had an idol, you'd push people, and had an advantage, there was safety, you push people. So that's also like, Rome could have been doing that behind the scenes as well. He's just like, look, like, I'm immune, I've got this, like, let's just do this. He's already aggressive.
And good for him as well. But I think it's like, while the plan is convoluted, also the fears are convoluted. He was going to play his idol on Genevieve maybe, or he's also, which I think Asia was correct in saying, like, he wouldn't do. So I think it's like, you know, an okay bet, especially where you can split, but you can't split because he'll steal the vote. Like, a lot of that is like preparing for the absolute worst, like too much overthinking it to a degree, like too much fear in that, when it will probably, you know, go a certain way, which is he's going to play the idol on himself and keep the vote steal. And the thing is, like, even if he plays it all, even if it goes at its worst, you are in a position where it'll just bounce back if you choose for it to bounce back on Sol anyway. And then he's cleared out the whole bag of tricks. And yes, it is scary to keep Rome in the game as the biggest hustler who has said he's going to come back and look even harder. I think a lot of that is how Rome will come back and the fear of what you'll be up against with that. Like, he could play Shot in the Dark, he could find another idol. If you win enough challenges, he's made it to a merge or a swap, and he has like your name, you know, he's out for you. In saying that, you know, I would clear it out and then just try and take him out, because how are you going to play the game like that? Can't, you know, he has us hostage. Like, we can't, you know, do that for Rome. Like, is that how you're going to play the whole game? Like, that is such a restricted game. Like, you have to take it on now. You can't play with that kind of fear with this person through the next, you know, 19 days. So I think it's like, you start as you mean to go on. And if they want to start with the mean to go on to like be like completely held up by Rome, that's what they've done, you know, or you take it on and you show Rome who's boss, the person with the relationships, and you take care of that. I think there is extreme fear in that. I have sympathy for Teeny in that. I would be scared of it. But I think at a point you have to try and weaken it. You have to move forward with the people you'll work with better. And you have to take a shot. And if the shot fails, like, at least Rome used everything in his arsenal to do it. And then you go out and hustle and you go out and try find the thing, and then, you know, try and deal with Rome from there. It is scary. It could go badly. He could find another idol and now you can't split and now you're screwed. But he also could not. And I think that playing the game with that type of fear is just, it's just an unfortunate way to start for Teeny Kishon, who was so in the middle and had such great, like, social capital. And I just feel like now are not in control due to Rome overawing them with the you know, what he amassed.
It's a funny thing. It really is like literally just social versus strategy, basically. Like, they're the ones that have a lot of social power, a lot of social currency, but couldn't use it. It's just an interesting thing with, to me, the more and more we've gone into New Era, the more people play safe, because all the variables that pop up sort of force people's hands to do that. And to me, like, the 2-2-2 is like, if you like draw it out on paper, if you've got all the time to sort of like check it, the 2-2-2 is the exact correct play. Like, you've got the most power from it, you've got the best results from it. But to me, I wouldn't admonish them for the choice that they've made. I think it's fine. I think that they'll be fine. I think they probably only go to one more tribal. I don't know, but I mean, based on the numbers, like, the likelihood is that they're fine.
It's funny. I'm smiling because I started off more where you were, being like, that really sucks for Teeny. Like, and I still do feel that, but I was like, that's such a hard situation. And then, like, the more I thought about it, I was like, no, but there is a workaround. Like, just go to Asia, explain all the information. Like, you've already told her about the idol, just tell her about the vote steal, tell her the plan, and like, try for Soul. And if not, he'll use it all. And then I was like more critical because I was like, do that. That's the plan. But now you're like, but it's so hard. And like, I am thinking about coming back to Rome being like, oh, I hate you. And I've just found 3 more idols somehow. And I do get that.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
you don't want to be on the wrong side of that. I think it'll be okay. I think, honestly, the way that it looks now, as long as they make it to merge, I think Teeny and Kishan have like huge potential to just go really deep. I don't think they, like, you've obviously brought up that like Rome is abrasive and then you are then trying to work in socially. I think that it would be quite easy for them to just separate themselves as a duo, attached to someone else that you kind of like, and just move on from there. It feels like the New Era is pretty fluid to be able to do that, as long as you have a good social game, which I think they do. I mean, Kishan seems extremely patient. If you can deal with Rome on your beach, you can kind of deal with whatever comes out from anyone else.
Well, are they dealing with it? I think that's the question at the root of it that we haven't really got to the heart to. But I think this shows, I think, like the two, or like a spectrum of how we look at it for them, which is like, yeah, I as well, like, you can have sympathy for the fact that it's difficult. There were possible workarounds as well, which I would hope they would do. And, you know, how much you can criticize that, I think, really depends. Like, your mileage may vary on how much you're like, do the thing, to, no, the thing is so hard. This is their first tribal council. Like, are they writing it in the sand? And I think I fall further on, like, do the thing, and you fall further on, like, Rome is a headache. Like, take the day off. Like, now you're with Rome and just keep it trucking. So
I would just keep it chill, personally. I think it's just, I'm going to go easy on them. Like, if they were maybe returnee players, then yeah, you should do it. If they've been around for way longer, or it's a different context. I mean, they're looking at it, it's the first person gone. You're already a week in. Just take the easy road.
Yeah. I definitely see that. I think that, you know, it was aggressively anti-Soul, even in what they did, splitting on Seoul, and that's how we get this like 3-1-1-1 because there's 2 splits. I think that I didn't really understand hugely either split because they're splitting clearly on Seoul and Clay's like Asia plays her shot in the dark, but Seoul was on the Rome part of the split, so his vote would have been negated anyway. In knowing that Rome's going to play it on himself, but I guess that one was okay. But it just shows Seoul so much. Like, not only are we like not with, you know, we voted out your ally and we've split on you, like we are a 4. And even Keyshawn says, and the tribal council, which I thought was cool, like we are a 4, like Seoul, we are done. Like really putting all their eggs in the Rome and Genevieve basket, which I thought was interesting. And then Asia and Seoul were splitting too, which I really didn't understand because that would be, again, like a 3-1 on a shot in the dark. But if Genevieve plays and hits a shot in the dark, then Rome is immune.
But that's how you do it. Like, you really should, like, if you're going for this core 4, then you really hammer it in. We saw Tiana do that. She didn't include Kyle. Kyle then votes for Sue, and then Sue just doesn't want to bar him. Like, he tries to get back in, and you just can't because they're literally the only person on the beach that, like, has voted for you. Of course, you're not going to work with them. So if you are going to do a 4, which in the new era seems like it's one of the strongest things you can possibly do, then having the first vote be something where you just completely get rid of the first person and just socially get rid of the other person. Like, then you're just in the clear. Like, you've got a buffer, and unless you're a disaster tribe, you're probably going to merge.
I don't know, though, because, like, I feel like Gotta, they didn't do that, and I praised the fact that they, like, brought Andy in and didn't split, you know, on Andy, and they could have gone badly, but instead they read it well and, like, had a possible ally. And now I feel like Andy does have, like, channels open that could be bad for some of them, but has opened it up with the people who've taken advantage of it. And I feel like, you know, here the split on Seoul was so cautious, you know, like he's voting for Rome. Like, so much would have to change from what you think it is. And, like, I know things might change. He might put it all on Genevieve, but you think he's voting for the person who's immune anyway. Like, so much would have to go wrong for, like, Asia to hit her shot in the dark, and then he's voted for Genevieve, and then Genevieve, and is that even that bad for Teeny and Keyshawn? But, like, maybe Rome and Genevieve are really pushing that. But yeah, it just felt like, okay, well, like, we're really a 4 now. What did you think about Seoul versus Asia? Like, assuming they've chosen Teeny and Keyshawn have chosen Genevieve and Rome because it's too hard. We've talked about that at length. Then what about, like, this choice here that they choose Asia over Seoul?
Yeah.
That pair.
Well, it was interesting because you saw them sort of convincing Rome to go one way, but then they went back to Asia in the end. To me, if you're going to commit to that and you're getting your hands dirty in that way, where you're just like, we're a 4, they're a 2, you really want the person left that Rome likes the least. And I think that is Seoul. And you want the person that's...
It was close. He seemed to really hate both.
Well, I don't know. Like, because part of him, I think he's just an esports guy. So he just talks trash. But he seemed to really actually not like Seoul to me.
I think he really didn't like Asia either. I think he really didn't like either of them. It was an easy thing to convince him to Seoul. But then I feel like it would have been easy to convince him back to Asia. Like...
Yeah, I don't know. I probably just would have gone whichever. We'll never know which person, or if there was a person that he liked less, but I would probably try and go and keep the one that he likes less, because then you just even more, you've just created that buffer for yourself. It's just a safety vote out. And so I would keep Seoul. I think that's fine. I think if you've convinced Rome that he's a threat and he's not to be trusted and he's the next vote, that's fine. Like, that's what you want. You want to create a buffer. You want to create further benefit for yourself out of the vote, rather than just getting rid of someone and it's not you. If you can get any value out of it, it's that you're basically just, like, separating other people in the tribe.
Yeah, I guess at the point where, like, they've chosen that pair, like, they're kind of, you know, cutting it with the other person, assuming, like, again, this, like, very cautious, I think, unnecessary split on Seoul. So you're cutting the other person anyway, so they might not be as workable to you anyway. So it is more about, like, Rome's relationship with them. But I just felt like Teeny had really invested in Asia, and, like, to lose Asia, like, let alone to lose that grouping, but to lose Asia as an option. And maybe you think, like, you've come to Asia with the Seoul vote. She doesn't seem super on board with she's not on board with the Seoul vote. So maybe you feel like that capital will be lost anyway if you go ahead and vote out Seoul. But yeah, I would have just thought that you know, I guess like, yeah, if you're really all in with the 4, burying this other pair, splitting, doing everything to just be like, we don't know you, don't look at us. Maybe that's gone anyway, but I would still think that you would want Asia there as an option. You may never go back to tribal, as we're saying, right? 44% chance. Don't you want to try and rebuild with Asia and work through with her, especially for Teeny? I'm not super sure about Keyshawn, and we did see that he wanted to work with Asia, but Asia also said that he felt less good about her and, you know, felt like he wouldn't be a priority for her as much as like Teeny and Sol. So maybe it's better for Keyshawn than Teeny. But I think from the relationship we've seen with Teeny, it was just like, wow, you have something like inbuilt here that seemed really kind of important, and now it's gone.
Yeah. I guess it depends on the context that you play as well. Like some people want to get rid of people, and then other people just want to keep certain people. Like that's how I play. Like I'll want to keep certain people, and then anyone else on the board, like just go for it. You can take your pick. You can vote out whoever you want. As long as I get to keep these people and you not voting out specifically my people, then like go for it. There'll be a whole cast of like neutral people that if you want to pick them. I'm happy for you to have all that power in deciding. So when they go to Asia and she's really not keen on voting out Sol, maybe that's something that they were looking for. They were looking for the flexibility to be like, okay, like I'm willing to like listen to what you have to say to do this. I mean, again, you got to be nice to people that they haven't ever been to a tribal before. Like there is a lot of like mind games and that sort of thing that could go on that you don't have experience with, where people like floating names and that sort of thing. Because I mean, it's a very simple strategy as well. If someone feels like they're on the outs, and some people used to do it to me where they're just like, oh, like, what do you think of this name? And if you say yes to it, they'll just go to that person and dob on you and be like, oh yeah, this person was like very happy.
Our American listeners won't know dob, but
yeah, they'll go like they're basically just like try and trap you in a story of like you agreeing to vote someone out and then go and tell them. So you kind of like you do want to have some sort of concrete system of like honesty. You don't just want to say like yes and it be like a different yes to every single person all the time. At least not until the end game where you kind of have to. If you can sort of like stand your ground on some decisions and have it be transparent, then it's probably a better thing. But it depends on what people value. Like to Teeny, they just might have want someone who's just a completely flexible voter. They'll just do whatever vote that they get told to stay in the game. But Teeny might not have explained it either. Like if you came up to me and were like, the only way you make it through this vote right now is if this exact thing happens and you vote this exact way, then I would be like, okay, yep, like do it.
Yeah.
Vote out whoever.
Yeah,
but
I think until that's what it is.
Yeah, unless I got that, I probably would have just stood my ground as well. Be like, no, like this is my person. I don't want to vote them out.
Yeah. I think for Asia, I think that's my criticism, and maybe it's in TD not communicating that, or it probably is in Asia not understanding where she stood. As I said, with like, you know, Andy turning on John. If you're at the bottom, like beggars can't be choosers, right? It's like Asia said in her exit press, you know, like Teeny wouldn't turn on Keyshawn. It's like Teeny doesn't have to. You know, Teeny has the luxury of being in a better position. But if you're at the very bottom, like if it's you or me, then like you have to do that. You know, that's and I don't think Asia knew that it was that dire. So I think like had she known that, it would have been like, oh, me or Sol? Yeah, like if that's the option, I don't love it. But I like it better than the other option, which is me.
But you stay in. Yeah, because it's like one.
Then clearly, I don't choose Sol.
Yeah, like you take the days, you take the experience, you take like you're still in the game for $1 million. So of course, like if you don't like something, but you actually understand you're on the bottom. I don't think Asia understood she was on the bottom.
Exactly. That's my biggest criticism. How much criticism do you put on Asia versus how much, like, because people are saying like twist screwed, obviously, with like, you know, the extremity of the journey being like, I mean, I think it all kind of works in this episode. Not that it's so connected, but like just having to put your hand in a bag and then being on a tribe of 6 with 2 advantages. And so some people were looking at it like a production kind of thing. How much do you kind of put it on Asia versus that? How much is it somewhere in the middle of that? Like, how do you look at that?
No, I think I think you can logically talk through all these things and you can communicate what the best choices were. And obviously there's a lot of things that we can criticize. But then when it comes to the actual people, I really don't think you can criticize harshly because it is very early. Like, and I think until you're out there and you play, you really can't understand how much just white noise there is all the time. And so like we're seeing these critical conversations and we're saying like, you know, like Teeny should have explained this better, and she should have, and Aisha should have picked up on being lower.
Maybe Teeny doesn't want to be fair. Like you also don't want to go and be like, we're choosing you otherwise. You know, I think softening that language probably felt pretty important to Teeny rather than like
exactly. Yeah. Like, and a lot of things you do think that they're bigger when you're playing. You're like, oh, this was huge, like this tiny little thing that like to you is like the biggest thing in the world, and no one cares. Like you see that with like juries and stuff as well, where it's like the person playing and getting to the end is like, oh, this was like a huge thing in my game, and everyone's like, that wasn't big at all. But yeah, the white noise is really the big thing that's really hard to articulate, because you got to understand, like we're seeing this little thing, we're seeing what's important, and I think the bigger thing is we just get all the unimportant stuff just ripped out, because they're going to have all these other conversations. Every single name would be floated. And I mean, we saw it. We saw one of those conversations was like Rome going up to Sol and being like, oh, like you should do this. And it's just complete, like he knows he's lying. Sol knows he's lying. They're still wasting 5 minutes talking to each other anyway. Imagine that, but then 80 of those. Like you had 80 of those across like 7 days. And like that's the white noise, is like you have conversations where like, I know you're lying to me. Like, you know, you're lying, but then you have ones that are like less obvious. They're in the middle. You'll have one where you've got a third person. It's a really awkward three. Like imagine a three where it's like Rome, Teeny, and Sol. And then you have to have a conversation between you three where you're like, all right, like we're in an alliance. All three of you knowing that like that's not the alliance. And then one of those people will go away, and then the two will be there. Like, no, us two are the alliance. And then we've got, like, if it's Rome and Teeny still there, you're like, no, it's us and Genevieve. And so you just get this, like, it's just filler. There's always this constant filler and white noise. And part of becoming better and better is being able to cut those conversations off quickly. Like, you say them, but you cut them off quickly. You get to the important conversations and you keep sort of pushing through what actually is the consequential stuff. But yeah, I really don't admonish them for not playing optimally right at the start. I think it's just too hard, like to really like nailing a 2-2-2 split. Like it's the correct thing, but
a 2-2-2 split that changes if a vote steal is played. It's a live split. It's very, very involved.
There's too many variables. I don't think we can. I would have loved it. And it would have been the correct move, but I'm not gonna expect it.
I think that's what it is when you start in these small tribes. I mean, it's hard, you know, like in bigger tribes, obviously, you know, you're getting to this final six, maybe only at the very end of the game, or if you've gone to several tribal councils, if we talk about Australian Survivor, and that constricts things, but it does make it very finicky, and very difficult. And I think for Asia, I wouldn't say she was twist screwed, but I do think this type of Euro game is incredibly constricted. Like, again, like not getting on with Rome, that one relationship loss is brutal. And you can criticize her because he's getting on with everyone. Keyshawn has relationships across the board. So that is a credit to them over and above what Asia was able to do. But it's still like, that's such a massive, massive loss because the options are so tiny. And Teeny, they're both. So I think that is really difficult. I wouldn't say that it's a kind of twist screw thing, but I would say that like in Teeny making, you know, decisions that I think are difficult and that I also don't agree with, but yeah, like in that really tough spot and with just so few options, I think that's kind of the main thing I attribute for Asia. And then the criticism I put is in not just like the one kind of soul interaction, but the fact that that's born from not knowing her position. Because if she knows like, shit, it is like me or Sol, like that is how much Rome has like gotten through here. Like that's how much ground he's made up. Then she plays the whole thing differently. Like, yes, that interaction would be differently because her whole mindset would be different. And then that would be a truer mindset to where she was at. Yeah, so I think it's tough. I think it's tough that Rome goes on the journey. She doesn't know what he has. She's not going to like play a shot in the dark. What if he has an extra vote? You know, like, and then that's like the reason, even if they're not like splitting on a 3-1, that he has like a 3-3 with her playing the shot in the dark. So like all of that, I think makes decision-making really hard. I think Rome did well to be like this tidal wave of a human being. that in a small tribe just like devastates everything and makes it very, very tough. And I think that's kind of what I attribute to it most. I really like, I can talk about this for ages. I think it's been an hour, but it doesn't feel like that for me.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
It's so interesting, and I really enjoy it. And I kind of want to talk about Rome, more in this. But something I find really interesting is that, yes, Rome goes on the journey. Rome, Carl, and Annika, the three people you could say are like the next kind of targets, at least. Rome can't go home, but like targets in those tribes are the three that end up on the journey. And I tweeted saying, I feel like majorities need to get this in hand. Like, how is Kyle on the journey? And I asked the players, the group chat, and Zach and Oma said that like they're not given instruction on like how the person is chosen to on the boat. It's like chooser goes on the boat. They felt like if someone ran to the boat, they could go. If you wanted to lose that social capital. And there's obviously been some talk, maybe it's like, the precedent, I guess, is in Ghost Island, it was make a unanimous decision, and if not, draw rocks. We don't know what it is here. It's like work it out amongst yourselves. I mean, firstly, I think the first question I want to ask, because again, I've been debating this for days with them, and I also find this really enjoyable, is how do you think, from a production standpoint, how should the boat be decided? What should be the protocol on who gets on the boat?
If I'm the producer?
Yes, if you're a production.
Oh, then you definitely want whoever's on the bottom to be on that boat.
Right.
Because although saying that, there was punishments there. So maybe they were expecting...
This was a curse. This journey especially. I mean, they had it in 44, and I hate this journey.
Yeah, I did not like that there was auto punishments. Wasn't it like a 2 in 3 chance that like you get screwed, basically?
It was 2 of 3. And I mean, I think like when they did this in 44, it was unprecedented. So I really hated it because I couldn't even really blame the people who went, because like they never had no opportunity to not reach in the bag. Like to opt, they weren't allowed to opt out. And they'd always had the opportunity to that point to opt out. At least now there's been a tiny precedent in that it happened once in Survivor 44. But like, yeah, I never ever want the players to be.
You have to give choice. You have to give choice, and choice is the most interesting thing in Survivor. We just talked about a few choices for an hour. Like that's the most interesting.
And we could do it for more. Let's be here all day. Love it.
I gotta go bungee jumping. But
me too.
Choice is the most important thing. It's so to take that away, I don't like. To me, I think if you're a producer, you want the person who's on the bottom to go on the boat, and you want the thing to be something that has a lot of choice and a lot of weight to it. So you can balance it any way you want, as long as people get the choice, or as long as you could just make it where they compete with each other. And then you really get people in hot water because people come back net neutral. And usually net neutral is where people have the most trouble explaining things and getting away with it. If I'm a producer, you would probably... I don't think you can make it so that the person on the bottom is getting on the boat, but you would want them to, and then you would want it to be a game where they all verse each other and only one person wins.
Well, they do. Because usually it's like after a challenge where the other tribe will choose, and if they have any sense of the dynamics, they're choosing like the Andy, they're choosing the people that seemingly aren't fitting in. So that does behoove the person on the bottom if the other tribes can pick up a sense of the dynamics, which, maybe that's on the tribes not to show that. But yeah, and also that person on the bottom can like make eyes at you. So usually the person on the bottom does, I think, have a bigger chance being like the Banu who will go to the island.
Well, they'll push harder for sure. If I'm on the top and I'm a player, though, I'm just literally trying to rig it so that one of my friends is the one who ends up on the boat. Which would be pretty doable. Like you could just do the like long straw or something like that, and then you just rig
the sticks. They've done that, yeah.
Yeah, you just rig the sticks and then hand it to like whoever's like your best friend. You just give it one first, make it be the one that is the longest stick or shortest stick or however. I don't know. I've never done that. I don't think I've ever done
I've never picked a stick before. I've never actually picked a stick for anything.
Never actually done it. But yeah, you would just try and rig it. But yeah, a better walk would be them versing each other. I thought the one where, was it TK versus Aisha? I thought that one was perfect.
Oh yeah, that journey, yeah.
Like where they go and then they have a competition. The competition is, quote unquote fair. Like it feels fun. I felt like every single thing about that challenge was good. I would love to see more things like that where they go for like treasure hunts, or they have something that's like fun and competitive. I mean, that game is good as well, where you actually get to see the island. They show off all the nature side of it without it being this forced thing either.
This was the worst of the journey. I think people agree. Like, no, and is it fun? Like Mike White tested. By the way,
it's not fun.
I'm midway through my White Lotus, so I'm very much on my white. Like, is it fun? But yeah, no, like them just reaching into a bag, like, is not without decision making.
And pull out a punishment. That is actually quite bad television. It's not. Yeah. It's not great to just have like a quick reveal of you have now been punished for coming on this walk. Yeah,
I think in terms of the boat, firstly, for me, this was controversial because I did argue about it with Zach and Oba for 2 days, but I think I wanted to be like, work it out amongst yourselves. Like, if you want to pick sticks, you pick sticks. And I think people do tend towards diplomacy because it is a social game. You don't want to put people off. Like, you're very much on the bottom and you are not going, and then you make it to emerge and they flip on you. So in that social game, I think people are diplomatic. I would say, like, I think the Ghost Island precedent, that again is not certified. They do not tell the players what's going on, but I think people assume if you can't work it out, you are forced to pick rocks. I don't like being forced to pick rocks because I feel like that's unagent. Like, I feel like that's random and that's, taking away from the players' agency.
I wouldn't let them do that at all.
On the bottom though, because that's like they don't have an even chance. They have a lesser chance by being not in the majority, but they have a chance compared to what I think it should be, which is if you can't work it out between you, like, it's majority rules, it's a vote. Because then I think that would be interesting, because then I think a majority would have to be like, Carl, you're not going. We just left you out of the vote. Don't you know what's going on? And like, majority rules, you're not going. Like, let's put off Carl more. Do you want to do that? Do they want to make an interesting decision like that? I think it's interesting. I think it's extreme. I think it would be rarely done, but I think it's a good fallback. I think most of the time people will say, okay, let's be diplomatic. Let's pick the rocks. But I think that, to me, because again, production, we don't know. The players don't know. What happens if they say, we cannot work this out? I don't want to pick rocks. You're not going, Kyle. No, we are picking rocks. Like, in that situation, they don't know. We don't know. So I think it should be a vote if they cannot work it out, if they want to take it to that extreme.
What about you make the journey a challenge and you have it be something that's a bit more interesting and different, but anyone that wants to get on the boat can get on the boat.
Overload the boat.
If you like, and it can just be opt in or opt out. Like, do you want to stay at camp?
That's a very different thing.
There's the option of, and you could maybe do this earlier, like before any idols have been released or anything like that, and you release an idol at the same time. You could even do the journey be something that's like a red herring, and the actual thing is back at camp, like that cage thing that they did on one of the
actual
seasons.
Thing is back at camp. Like, the idol is at camp. The journey was, as we said, mostly bad. Like, in terms of like the people on the bottom, like, there's a lot of space not going on the journey or not being the one to be picked. Like, again, you might still be picked. They still have extreme diplomacy, which the majority has been employing within these very vague, non-existent rules. But like, even without that, like, again, you'll be chosen by the other tribe if it's at that point. You have the idol at the camp. The journeys are risky at best, terrible at worst. We
saw as well, like Aisha and TK, they're the ones who
that took it well. Did not,
and it's like,
did it?
And I guess obviously other dynamics as well, but you're not doing yourself any favors by spending a whole afternoon completely missing from your camp very early in the game. So it almost could be a good thing to just opt in or opt out of the boat, because then it's like, maybe you get an alliance that goes on the boat. Maybe you get people that specifically want to stay behind, solidify like an idol hunt or anything like that. It could make for more interesting choices to just have a complete opt-in or opt-out, especially if you made it a challenge where it's like one person gets it. And then you get all these little variables where, like, will someone go on the boat to watch someone else who's on the bottom and then watch what they're actually saying to the other players? You can get really weird cross interactions. To me, I would be interested in maybe seeing that. Maybe when they do like season 50 or something like that, just have complete opt-in or opt-out.
We're all at the island.
Everyone's on the boat.
We're not losing social capital because we're all here. But this cast actually wouldn't. And I think that's what we're seeing. Like, for me, I think like production want the target to go on the island for sure. And that's why you would think that it's not like a vote, like definitely not like starting with a vote or even getting to a possible vote, because that's what they want. I mean, I don't ever want it to feel like production are manufacturing something like, oh, let's do this because then maybe the minority will get the thing. I hate that kind of manufactured forced part of it. I want it to be agent in the player's hands, that they make a decision. Like if they want to pick sticks and let maybe someone like Carl or Rome go on, like let that be their decision, which I think it has been to this point. I don't think we've seen it play out. I don't know, but I don't think we've seen a discussion that's like, I won't pick sticks. Like I'm not letting you go. Like I'd love to see how that is handled. But yeah, I think production want the minority member to go. But now we're saying maybe it's better not to go. But then I think I go back again because I'm all the way around 360. Where like, yes, but if you're in the minority, you want to go. Like if you're Rome, this was perfect. Rome can't go next. He has an idol. He is the target. He can afford to lose his vote. And so like he should definitely do that. If you're Kyle says that he wouldn't have reached in the bag. Kyle should keep reaching in the bag. You know, Kyle's in the bottom. Kyle's been left out of the vote. Like he, of course, should go. He can lose like the time. Like he needs an advantage. So I think the people on the bottom often need that thing. I think production would push for that to be more of an option. I don't think I'd push for anything as a production person because I like that sense of agency and fairness. But I see why they want it, and I see why someone on the bottom would want it. And we get like all three next targets going on the board, and I just think that that's like a crazy thing for to have happened for these like majorities or these power players.
But then you would think if they were actually like trying to push certain agendas, that all of a sudden the walk would have a lot more advantages in it than just like auto. Everyone,
the minority member,
all
like
risk people
giving you the chance to go on the journey. Minority member, you're welcome to be screwed over. Like people was kind of like, let me invite you to my lair of doom. It's not. I mean, look, even if they pick sticks, like technically the majority should have a better chance of going. They have the numbers. They have a better chance.
So maybe they're assuming
they're trying to screw over the majority.
Yeah, maybe that's them. Maybe they're thinking like maybe they do have it locked in, but they're like, hey, if the majority goes and we think that they will, then they get screwed over.
Yeah,
but
like,
I just
bad for the majority if they go. But
I just want choice.
All
I want is choice. I just want more choice. Every single thing should be a choice, and the more variables you can get out of it, the better. Just make it, especially because people will make assumptions. People will change their game plan off nothing. Like if you come back as a neutral, like you have one person screwed, one person forced to have a neutral result, one person with an advantage, the neutral person will come back. It still affects the game because everyone assumes things. So no matter what, just having choices makes things better and better.
Yeah, I agree. That's like my Mike White fun thing. Like, is it a choice? And I think it's really interesting. I will say that, letting Rome, Kyle, and Annika go is so interesting to me. I think I'm really critical of it with Rome. I think like maybe that's the thing as well. Like I know we can't criticize too much, but like with Teeny and Kishon, they have all the power. You know, and I think what it speaks to is like Teeny and Kishon definitely Teeny, I think even said preseason, would not want to go on the journey. And I get it. I wouldn't want to go on the journey. Have you seen the journey? It sucked a lot. But like, I think you want to have usually the option, the information, like the control of that situation. And yes, if Teeny had gone and lost their vote, that would have really sucked too. So you can't be results oriented about it. But I do think even if not for the power, for the information, someone's got to protect. Like Kishon or Teeny have to be sowing the seeds with all of their allies, with Rome or whatever, to be like, I really want to go. Next time, I really want to go. And then everyone will opt into that because they're all aligned with these people. Like, does it get to the point where you're all playing scissors, paper, rock, and then you've all lost scissors, paper, rock? So firstly, on the scissors, paper, rock, criticize. Secondly, on like, how does Rome, of all people, go?
And you just got to get better at rock, paper, scissors.
Well, definitely
you just got to be better at it.
Although you can't practice rock, paper, scissors if it's best of one. Best of three, you can try read that and see how it goes.
There's psychology things, aren't there?
But not
there
for best
psychology
of one.
things.
That's just luck. Oh no, there probably is psychology around what people do first. So definitely look into that before you go on the show.
Isn't it like when people lose, they're like extremely likely to change on the next one?
But there probably is as well around what people do first and then countering it.
Yeah.
So look into that.
Just go rock every time. Just go rock every single time.
Good old rock. Nothing beats that. Are you as harsh as I am that they let every person on the bottom go to the journey, or are you like, I don't want the journey? So fair.
Kyle, I don't understand because he is very clearly the bottom. The others, I mean,
He drew the rock.
for Rome, I don't really see it being too bad if you're one of the people that's with him. And they were kind of just basing it on a system where they thought it was fair. So maybe they just,
But
they
weren't
just got to the point.
Like that.
They were
like,
doing rock, paper, scissors though. So it was like,
well, but it's like I feel like they were with him because he came back with something, and that was so scary that like even Teeny was like, now he's got this, like, you know, like I think because that happened, they were with him. I think had he not gone, but maybe if they'd lost a vote, they would have anyway have had to kind of steer into that without being able to split. It would have been a different way to be with him. It would have been, he has something, I have less. Now I need him.
Yeah.
But then it became he has everything. That's also scary. But I still think like allowing that to happen when he's already like teetering on the edge of too powerful and it's about to overwhelm the whole tribe. Like, surely you get to a point where Rome isn't going on the boat. What? It's just so unfortunate. So unfortunate.
Is Arnica really on the bottom though? Because it's like, aren't they hiding that from her and like to try?
And I will also say with Rome, Rome went to give the information. They all did. Carl as well, you know, like could go and give. He didn't seem to, but I think like also from an information standpoint, that's like, yeah, for Arnica, I think that it's different because I'm not critical of Arnica going because you can't ever make it seem like she's not with you. Like if anything, you are technically with her. And for someone like Sam, like, you know, if she comes back and she has something, you have an idol, you could also just stay with the 4 and get rid of Andy. Like that can kind of choose how you're going with it. It doesn't need to be nearly as aggressive with Arnica. And if it is aggressive, if anything, it will make a definitive line that doesn't need to be there that will make your situation harder. So I'm not critical of that. It's more like Kyle, like Rome Rome had a lot. Kyle was on the bottom, had just been left out of the vote. Like those are the two. Where
Kyle is the one. Yeah, Kyle, you wouldn't let him go. Kyle, you would just try and make it any sort of like majority rules game where you've got like the odds way stacked against him. Even if you're like making it look like it's fair, like you do the sticks and don't completely rig it, you would still try and make it like a majority rules game. So he's basically got this like tiny chance of actually going. And he's not the sort of guy to question that.
Like, why are we being so diplomatic? You just left him out of the vote. Like, I believe me, I advocate for diplomacy and a social game, and I've spent the first 2 weeks of the season doing that. But you just left him out of the vote. Isn't it like, Carl, are you kidding? No, not you.
No. I don't think you can. I don't think anyone wants to be the person that is like really harsh, because ultimately people can end up on the jury very easily. Like again, it just comes down to the context of the new era. It is relatively, like, I'm using easy for lack of a better word, but it is quite easy to get onto the merge in terms of just sheer numbers that make it onto there. It's only a third that sort of gets removed. So you really don't want to actually be hyper aggressive, or, I mean, just not in a genuinely mean way. So even Kyle, well, I mean, it kind of is. Like, we saw that there was like a flash forward, I think, to next week. And it's just like Rome obviously watching Soul, who is trying to probably look for idols. That's what's like implied. And so that sort of thing is one of those things in Survivor where it's like, yes, it's fair. Like, they're allowed to just follow you, and like you could be seen to do that cheerfully, or it could actually be extremely jarring and malicious and just really not nice. Like things like that, where you really take someone who's on the bottom and you just take away their agency in that kind of way. It can be very mean. And some people will take it that way as well. And so for Kyle, if you've got someone and it's like maybe they don't go back to a tribal and then he ends up on the jury, you've got someone who's like hates
immediately you, flipping on you and never voting for you. But this is why I think it can tend towards majority rules. This is my point. This was what I was arguing with Omer and Zach, is that's why I think that if you can't work it out, it can tend towards, if you really are putting a foot in the sand to be like, no, majority rules, and that's like the final line of like defense of how this has worked out. Like, I think that people will rarely do it for the reason of it's very rude and like it alienates. So I think that like that's why it's interesting, because it will rarely happen. And like, yeah, and if it does happen, we'll talk about it because it'll be an interesting social choice.
Yeah, well then, I mean, if you really want to do it that way and you're smart and quick enough, then you just go, all right, like everyone, let's vote for someone. You can't vote for yourself. Vote for someone you think should go on the journey.
You could do
and then
that,
obviously, if you've got 4-1, everyone's just gonna vote for someone in the majority instead of Kyle, and Kyle can't vote for himself.
But so even that is an interesting choice because even that is then that person now becomes a big threat. You know, then like when you get to emerge, it's like they all voted for this person. You know, like that if this person's running, that's the sad. I mean, you know,
then you can do some great things with that because if you like, I don't know, if you like get onto that quick enough and you're the one who starts the narrative, then you can be the first person that votes as well. And then you're like, I vote for this person, and then you don't see this so much in Survivor because it's not voting in front of each other, but what can happen a lot in the challenge is one person will vote for one person, and because it's in front of everyone, that person's already voted for, everyone just gangs on. Like, and it could be the same for a positive way as well. Like if you're just like, oh, okay, like Sue, I want Sue to go, then the next person could just be like, oh, okay, like I'll vote Sue as well. And you can just get that in a positive way. But basically, if you made it so you can't vote for yourself, Kyle can't even force a stalemate with a vote.
Yes. I also think that why that's interesting is because there are drawbacks to even voting positively for someone. There's definitely drawbacks to voting negatively for someone. Not that this, you know, well, voting like against what they want. So that's why a lot of the time people will be all the time, mostly, I think almost every time, people will be very diplomatic. They'll draw sticks. They'll do scissors, paper, rock. And that then negates the drawbacks of, well, Teeny's running the tribe. Look how everyone wants Teeny to go. But then you have Rome going. Then you have Kyle going. So it's like leaving it to that chance, which I think this is why I think that we haven't got to the point where it's like, no, I refuse. And then how are we kind of breaking this tie that, you know, or this stalemate that production hasn't necessarily accounted for? We don't need to, because most of the time people will be very diplomatic so that they don't put people off, so that they don't put themselves out in front. And now they're playing scissors, paper, rock. And now Rome is on the boat. And I find that really, really interesting because I think that, yeah, in this instance, truly every next target was there on the boat. And maybe I'm being too harsh to be like, how did you let that happen? But I do think especially for like Teeny and Kishon, you can just start it early, like days before, like I really, really want to go on the boat, you know? And you're aligned with everyone. So no one's going to feel bad about it. Everyone's going to be like, yeah, my ally.
You arrive on the beach immediately and it's like, oh man, I really had fun on that boat ride we just took. Right.
I love the boat.
I would really love to get back on that boat.
It's not even about the journey. I'm just bored here. And like even that has things. It's like, oh, so you really want the advantage, you know? And I think people don't want to go on the journey. It's so interesting because there are so many drawbacks. But yeah, so that people are just like, not me actually. You guys all choose, and now, or we leave it to chance, or let's not put any kind of social stock or tell or read into how this is decided. And now like the person on the bottom is there. I just find it interesting. Now we've spoken about this for 20 minutes, but I can't do it all day, Harry. I find this so interesting and enjoyable. It's like, it's so hard. It's so difficult. I have sympathy for the players. It's really tough. I come in like, how could you let that happen? And then I spend 20 minutes being like, that's really hard. There's no real answer to that. That's tough.
No, I think just in the moment, like it's still fine. I think, especially looking at people that have won in the new era, like you kind of want power, but you don't want to push too hard for it, because as soon as people push too hard for it, like those seem to be the people that really get knocked out, is like people that are at the forefront too early. Like even when they're not that good, like they're not even that powerful, they just like have the perception of being powerful. And up there. So yeah, I don't think that you can really criticize too much. I think it's fine. Kyle is silly, but everyone else is fine.
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to criticize, but then I'm like, damn. But I still think there has to be a way so that it's not Rome going. There has to be a way that the person who clearly has an idol isn't going to amass more power. Or maybe you're sending them to their doom on a journey no one wants. But I still think just from an information standpoint, just for the fact that he can go and bitch about Asian Soul, which he does, like it just was not a good situation. Like there has to be, there's a way to be like, yeah, what about Kishon? We all like Kishon. Great. You know, like I still think that's
yeah. I think the vote is the way, like that you can start to manipulate things. You can just say like, let's do it down to a vote and vote for someone else. And then you really can just sort of like manipulate the situation.
Yeah. I think, yeah. I still think it shows a hand, but I think that is better than this. As you said, it's all in context, and I think that in this context, I think that makes more sense. In terms of like just, more on the journey for what like Kyle comes back and tells them that he has lost his vote. I'd love to talk about Kyle and Gabe and kind of Tuku in this and the journey. So what did you think about what Kyle was doing in this episode, which included, telling that he'd lost his vote, and he's obviously trying to, Gabe approaches him and then he kind of goes back to them and throws Gabe under the bus. Like, how do you feel about how Kyle's trying to recover from the TK blindside?
I mean, you really don't have a lot to go off. Like, if you're Kyle, it just sucks. And I actually really like him. I think he seems like a really old school player and a social player, but he just really attached himself to the wrong side of the tribe. I don't know whether that was just like the boys club, where that was the thing where like he seemed to really vibe with TK, seemed to vibe with Gabe, but then it just was like the complete wrong way to go about it, to just like not really push with the other people. And look, it's pretty bad. Like, he lost his vote. Like, you really don't have a lot to go off there. And so really, what do you have than to throw someone under the bus? And it's what we were talking about before. You go and like, you really like look at someone who agrees to vote someone out, and then you just immediately take it to someone else. And when there is that much like filler conversations, you can kind of do that with almost anyone, but he was going to try it. But really, if you have no vote, then that immediately makes it like less appealing. Like, I wouldn't want to support someone who has no vote. Like, they're not going to be able to help you with the plan. Like, you're really going with their plan, even though they have no agency in it. And then Sue and Caroline are obviously not going to do it because they're absolutely tight, and he voted for Sue. So you're really going to struggle to actually get any numbers without a vote. What are they? They've got 5 people, 4 people are voting, and 2 of them don't like you. So like, you're pretty screwed.
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like you're like, it's too hard to criticize, but I'm going to criticize like pretty much everyone we saw anything from on Tuku this week. Because I feel like for Kyle, I think like he didn't even want to put his hand in the bag. He says he wouldn't have done it, but he was forced to. If I was Kyle, I'd go on the journey. I'd put my hand in the bag as many times as I want. Like, I need an advantage.
You have to.
So like, that security.
You have to.
Yeah. But he wouldn't have. And he actually didn't. He didn't do it for the next one. He should have put his hand in the bag again.
Oh, he should have. Yeah. Once you lose, like, what are you going to do? Like, go back to camp and try and convince people to go to rocks for you? Like, there's no chance. So it's like, you might as well just keep drawing.
Like, his vote, especially for the next one. I mean, he's already lost that one. So maybe he's thinking through to like, a merge or beyond this vote. But like, he doesn't have the luxury of doing that. Like, for this vote, his vote does not matter. Like, they're either voting Tiana out, which is like what Gabe comes to him with, or not. And in which case, the Power 3 will make that decision with or without your vote. Or maybe what he's trying to do is like pull over, with him and Tiana, Caroline and Sue, in which case the 3 of them can make that decision again without him. So I think that like not having a vote didn't matter. I even think telling them that he didn't have a vote for like the kind of Carl, as you're saying, like old school, good old boy mentality actually kind of worked for like, the player he's trying to be and was fine. I just think he should have been harder about like wanting the advantage. And I think he should have put his hand in the bag again.
He needs to just push the idea that he's like just useless, basically. Like, he's not a threat. Like, you just like, that's the only angle you really have left. Like, you can't make people go to rocks for you. You don't have a vote, so you can't push any kind of flip, which you would have if you had a vote, because you'd only need 2 people. So no rocks, no vote. You can't flip. You need an advantage, or you need to basically say, I'm absolutely no threat. Even as early as we are, you could probably just pull me another like 5 votes, and I might not even have any agency then. Like, there's just like no threat whatsoever.
Yeah. I don't think his vote matters, because I think with Carl, it's like either they want to keep him because he's like a stable, helpful provider and challenge asset who they, like, as Gabe said, he feels like is malleable, or not. It's not really about like as much as what he like, and that's from either side. If they want to, if eventually Gabe feels too erratic and they want to keep him over Gabe, or if they feel like he's more useful than Tiana, like they'll make that decision with or without him. And I think it's more just like how he's appealing to them socially. But yeah, I thought going back to Sue and Caroline was wrong. I feel like as I've said, like if you just have Tiana in front of you, like you probably will make the merge. Like you might again never even go back to tribal council, and if you do, just that one is how you probably make the merge, and then you have new life, and you'll probably find new friends in this game. So I thought that was wrong, and that's my criticism of Kyle. My criticism of Gabe this is just and then like so my criticism of Gabe is that he even came to Kyle with that in that way. I feel like he misread Kyle by being like he'd be really loyal to me because he's really loyal, misreading that loyalty to Tiana, who Kyle is overly loyal to, despite the fact that she just left him out of a vote. Again, you can criticize that while still criticizing Gabe for not reading that kind of wrong loyalty.
I don't get why Gabe even wants that.
Well, I think
why does Gabe want everyone? You don't need everyone. Like
Gabe
obviously
does.
You can be nice to everyone. Like that's the other thing as well. Like you don't have to say a name. If they ever ask you if you're thinking about a name, you say, "Oh, I haven't really decided yet." Just don't give them any name at all. Like be like, we're not going to tribal and I want to keep things positive. So let's not talk names. Let's not talk about kicking people out because that's the wrong attitude to have. And you can really just frame it like that. Like we want a positive attitude. We want everyone here. Let's not talk names. And there's no way that they can like hate on you for that. And you've also not given them any ammunition to actually go and like tell anyone. So like to Gabe, that's the thing I'd criticize Gabe. You've got the power position. Just keep everyone where they are. Like you keep everyone on the same strategic level, but then you just be nice to everyone. You've got that thing, like you've got the power. So now's the time where, like, let's just say, just in case you actually do make it to merge, you've been nice to them for like a week. Like you haven't threatened them with anything. You haven't followed them. You've let them go on the journey. Like to you, they're just like a friend that's there. And that's what we ended up doing. We had this weird thing in Champions versus Contenders where it was like, we didn't go to tribal. Like we went to tribal like once. And then we had this like whole Cold War where like they were maybe going to get rid of me. And they were maybe going to get rid of, like we were maybe going to get rid of Baden. And you just don't actually do it. And because you're not going, you have all these strategy chats and that sort of thing, but you're still being friendly to everyone. Like, even though we were maybe planning on voting out Baden left, like we still have like friendships that you're building and like real friendships. Like you buy the fire, you say real stories, you tell things about yourself. So I think that's what I would definitely like. If we can criticize anything, like I've been very nice to people today, but if I'm going to criticize anything, I really think it's a bad move by Gabe to even bring up a name. Just don't say a name. Just have it, like you've got the power. Once you've got the power, just keep it. Like keep everyone in the exact spot that they're in.
I completely agree. I feel like he gave Kyle that ammo on a misread, and I think it speaks to the issues I've had with Gabe last week, where I felt like I don't like how he talks about Sue and Caroline. Like, and clearly we didn't really see it, but clearly he gave that to Kyle, who then brings it back to Sue and Caroline in a way that was really clear. It's like he thinks you're goats, and he does. So like Kyle's not making that up. Like Kyle has got that from Gabe. The way that Gabe looks at his allies not like friends, but like pawns, and has made that expressly clear to, again, an enemy that he's not reading correctly, I think is very negative. And I think
but
that he's doing it as well. Like,
the funny thing though is that it's an overplay by Gabe, but he will luck out from it because to Sue, it's going to feel like an overplay from Kyle. Like, because
well, that's why I criticize Sue. Everyone on this tribe.
But it's funny because sometimes you just get lucky, and like it's going to feel weird to Sue. Well, Sue will be like, all right, so the guy who just voted for me is now telling me that one of my tightest allies who is willing to show me an idol is calling me a goat. And especially for Sue, like Sue is very strong personality, very strong person. She's probably going to go far, but she would be the sort of person to have the overconfidence in her own reads and that sort of thing. So it's just funny that it has combined to basically screw over
everyone's
Kyle
making
more.
The wrong decisions in a way that is like
that just screws Kyle even more.
Yeah, I think that, but I do think with Gabe, it will screw him up. In this mentality, even though it didn't go badly now, will be his undoing. That's my prediction, because I think that you can even see the fact that he goes to Kyle and not just offers a name, he does it so unilaterally. He doesn't bring in his allies. it's so individual because he doesn't see them as like equal partners. And I think that underestimation and that sense of individuality in like this team game for a while at least, I think will be his undoing. And I think the way that it's so clear even to Carl, whatever he said, that it's clear that they goats to him, like that perception, I think that wrong perception will, and the way that he's approaching that game so individually will be wrong. But then for Sue, like if Sue is aware of that, and knows he feels that way and is managing it, I think it's fine. You know, like that could be a Sandra style, like, I don't know about that. Like, yeah, sure, I'm your goat. And I don't see why Sue is Gabe's goat. And I think she could ride that to the end and possibly win, even though it's a tough demographic. But I think that my criticism of Sue is in that, you know, she's allowed to be like, okay, well, Carl is desperate and Gabe has worked with me and try and pass that out. And I think all of that is fair and true. But to me, it's the emotionality of like, Carl voted for me and it's done. Like, it's the cutting off the options. It's like the emotion without looking at it with logic. So that to me is like the criticism of Sue.
Yeah, when it's so tight numbers, you really can't say no to anything. You have to be open to everything. Like obviously emotions do come into play, and it's like, I mean, I'm guilty of that as well, like where you just let emotions kind of take control of your decision making. But you really have to try not to, especially early game where it's like you want to be open to these things. I think it's fine though. Like I think they've got their alliance locked in, and I think it is just about an awareness. I think as well, like if Gabe talks about them like that to anyone else where there isn't that direct conflict where it just feels like, yeah, like you can't trust Carl because obviously he's on the bottom and he's going to say anything now. As soon as anyone else backs up that story, then Gabe is screwed.
And they will, because it must be that clear. But like, yeah, Kyle should 100%, like it's all the criticism. Like Kyle should know that he doesn't have the social capital with someone like Sue, who will take it to heart when you vote for her. Like he should know that he can't kind of pull off a big swing and should just take the olive branch of not being next and then make it to his merge. As you said, you and Baden could have been the targets and you're the last two contenders left. So that's the runway.
You don't want to, you don't want to like fire that gun because you might need the person later.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that I don't think Gabe should have done it, but in making that wrong decision, I think Carl should have taken it. And in making that wrong decision of not taking it to Sue, I think Sue shouldn't have just distrusted him. And that is where I think that
everyone was basically wrong. Yeah. And Carl, it's funny because like, you know, it's the truth, but people don't trust the truth sometimes. Sometimes you need to have something else just because from the context that they're coming from, like they're just not going to believe something, even if it's true. Like there's some things where it's like maybe there's an advantage or something insane that happens where there's just no precedent for it. So people just don't believe it. And the same is true for some social circumstances. Like someone will betray someone or they'll be plotting to betray someone and you just can't believe it because you're like, oh, it just makes no sense to you. And so I think Kyle probably needed to come with a more gentle approach.
Yeah.
You could just be like, well, like Gabe has this perception of you. Gabe is going to do this in the future. If you bring me, I'm not going to do that. Like I'm going to come at it from this angle. Can we work something out?
Yeah. Everyone I think needed to be a lot calmer. As you're saying, Gabe, I think Gabe can do it with his allies and not give a name, just be a friend. I think Kyle can not necessarily go back and immediately use that information, like cut off that option. I think Sue was too harsh. I think it was too many lines, like way too many lines in Tuku. Yeah. So that, and then for Gotta, if we could talk about them slightly, how did you feel about kind of Annika on the journey? She doesn't make the decision to take the next advantage. And then, she comes back and she tells Andy that she did nothing, and then she tells, I assume, Sam as well. We see her telling the girls. She says she feels very good about the girls. I assume she told all her allies, including Sam. And I think it would be a big misread not to tell Sam because Sierra will tell him. So I assume she told all her allies what actually happened.
Yeah. I feel like everyone actually, apart from a few blemishes, everyone actually is playing a really decent game in terms of lying to each other, making alliances, making sort of secret things happen. There's a lot of in-between sort of movements. Obviously, you've got some obvious stuff. Who is it? Sierra and Sam are the two that are just like very obviously together. But I think apart from that, everyone is doing quite well, just kind of playing with each other, and it's like a will they, won't they sort of thing. Even with Andy as well, as like managed to work his way back in. And sometimes, again, you get lucky. People just don't like each other. And so it's actually very good to see him actually pulling back, because he had a very bad time, like just really just putting himself out there and showing himself to be very awkward. I would not like anyone throwing out concepts or stories or anything like that on a mat in front of other tribes. I would not want to play with them at all. Like, I would much rather a smarter player than someone who's going to just absolutely be a train wreck. But he's back in it. I think for Annika, I think it's just one of those things. Like, sometimes you just don't get along with people. But again, it just goes back to showing people's depth. Annika has been smart and she knows things. She's obviously studied going before there, but she also doesn't understand how she's coming across to some of the people, like as being maybe too smart and also too much of a leader, especially to Sam. And they just have like hilarious interactions. And it's so funny because I am Andy in that. Like, but I would push them more. I would bring them together in certain circumstances. I would, as often as possible, see if they'll work together on anything in camp possible. I'll bring each other's names up to each of them. That's what I used to do with Zach and Jackie. I'll just bring up their names all the time to each other, and you point things out and you like show them what each other's doing. You're like, hey, like, look at this. And it just drives them apart. So he was just having a good time enjoying them. And you see that whole hilarious thing where Sam's like going like this. And it is funny because Annika was right. But then
about this clothesline, yeah.
Yeah, like, and she was right about a lot of things, but I don't think she's going about it the right way in arguing. And neither is Sam. They're both wrong. But yeah, her going on the journey, if I was her, I just would have gone and not put my hand in, but that wasn't a choice. So I think to only accept the one minor punishment with her thinking the way she's thinking of it being like a 4 versus 1, I would just take the no vote.
Well, that's what I think the crux of it is. As you said, like, she's often right, but the issue is she's not understanding I think the perception of her and also her place in the game.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, she might be right about the clothesline. I think probably the bed is subjective, but it's about taking that conflict too far. And while, like, Sam is a part of that, Sam has an out. Like, Sam has Andy. What is Annika's out? That's her ally. Or she thinks her out is Sierra, which is wrong. So I think that's the criticism of, like, not knowing her place. And, like, that extends to the journey to the point where she goes on, in her mind, she's in a 4 against Andy. So it makes all the sense in the world to just, like, leave it here. I had to lose my vote. You'll vote out Andy. I have it back next time and we'll move forward. If it gets to a 2-2, I definitely have my vote. I definitely can't lose it for if we're getting to the 2-2 or if we're going to move through to a merge. You know, I'll be with my 4. She comes back. She tells, I assume, all her allies, because that's where she thinks the game sits. And where she actually sits, she probably actually could have used putting her hand in again. You know, she probably could use the advantage, but she doesn't know that. She's not in a good spot. She probably is the next target for someone like Sam, who has an idol and the ally in Andy. So I think she's behind the 8 ball in that. You know, for where she sits, she could come back and tell Sam and Sierra, yeah, I've got something. Bluff something. You know, roam them. Now I'm using it as a verb, but yeah, like, make them so scared that maybe you can't go against her. We can't split the vote. Does she have an idol? Who's she going to play it on? Does she have a one tribal idol that she could play on her or Rachel? Like, maybe now I've been forced.
Do you really want to strong arm people though? That early?
But is it strong arming just a bluff? Like, but the thing is, if she knew where she sits, and we don't really know where she sits because it could be, I think, you know, again, it's all Schrodinger's allies in terms of where will Sam go. But if she knew that Sam's really working with Andy and that Andy's making these connections and she could be the next target, then it's dire enough to want the thing, to bluff the thing. If that's not the case, then no. And where she thinks she is, then definitely not. But I just wish for her she knew more that there is trouble in paradise, and if she knew that, she might have a different approach. And she certainly probably wouldn't fight with Sam as much, at least. With that
I definitely think for the most part they're all playing very well, and I think that they're all hiding things from each other. And I think Annika's just in the unfortunate position where she is coming out on the bottom and she doesn't know it because everyone's playing quite well, just bluffing each other. It's basically the opposite of the situation at Tuku, where it's like, you do not have very obvious things, and maybe they haven't even decided themselves which way they want to go yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Sierra definitely seemed like she was really undecided. Sam was like suggesting maybe even playing an idol on Andy, and she did not seem pleased with that. Or maybe she was just surprised. I don't know.
I do think Sam wears the pants that are too heavy on the clothesline. Like, I think that she will go with him.
Really?
And I think that maybe that's what Annika's missing. I think she thinks it's the 3 girls and that Sierra would be loyal there. And I think Sierra's loyalty is to Sam.
Yeah,
I think
it is really hard to tell.
Yeah,
but
that one is harder because they aren't being forceful with it, which in many ways is good. But I just wish that Annika kind of knew that it was even an option that it might be. And I don't think she has any sense of that. And I think that is a concern.
A lot of danger there. Yeah. But I think she had the right call for the information she has. She's just unfortunate that she's actually playing with the good players on this season that are actually like hiding everything and not keeping everything like blatantly out in the open.
I do think that like if I had to put my money on a tribe for someone winning, I do gotta like I think that Rachel's an option. Yeah. I think like Annika, you know, with the mistakes, like she could win. I think Sam obviously is probably like the leader in the clubhouse from like an edgy perspective. Like Sue could be as well, but I think that Tuku have their issues. I now think that Lavo have their issues, and I think that Gada also have their issues, and it's still not a tribe name I can say.
Definitely better at hiding them.
Yeah, I think that they've got a little bit more legroom.
Yeah. Just as a survival thing as well, I find it really interesting. Like Annika's and other people obviously do a lot of YouTube, a lot of Googling, practice themselves. Like they've shown people in the new era really being onto it. I don't get why people are still sleeping on bamboo. And not only that, haven't learned how to, I mean, in reality, you've actually got 2 choices. There is no point sleeping on fully curved bamboo. There's just no point. Like it is so horrible. Well, either the dirt. I know that doesn't sound great, but it's like...
No, it sounds better than bamboo. It really does.
It's way softer. And if you sleep on the dirt by the fire, then you've got like a nice warmth the whole time. And you also get reminded. It's like, it literally is like an alarm clock, because as soon as the fire gets too small, then you get cold and you wake up and then you put more wood on the fire. And it's just like, it's literally like nature's alarm clock. And so I would just do that. Like I just sleep in the dirt. I've slept on bamboo maybe the first like week or something that I first played, and I was just like, this is stupid. This is terrible. But if you are going
like it would be comfortable.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's really hard.
It's like anti-comfortable. It seems like the exact thing you don't want to sleep on.
Actively making
round, hard curves of pain.
Well, if you are going to sleep on it, you're meant to like cut it into very like long strips. And basically the less you can make it curvy, the more flat you can get it, the better it's going to be. So like actual bamboo beds, like they've just turned it into like very fine strips. And with the machete that you've got, you probably are not going to get through all that, but you could give it a crack. Like you just sort of like quarter it and then you make that smaller, and you just like progressively over time, you can like cut a few every day and just like get it slowly to like go down into flat. But I would just sleep in the dirt. I mean, it's just way easier. I would rather have a fire like and not even bother with a shelter. You just like slowly make the shelter in case it rains. Like if it rains, you're screwed anyway. Like you're never getting it fully waterproof. So like I just wouldn't even bother with the bed and the shelter.
So she was wrong on that.
Oh yeah, that was like the one thing she was wrong on. She seemed very smart on a lot of other things. They're like talking. I think that they talked about.
She wants to go sleep season. I'm loving it.
I feel like it's weird that people are talking about sleep so much. It is a funny thing in the game that like you just really don't get that much sleep.
Oma told me he slept really well on Survivor. He's like, I slept better than here.
Good for your back, sleeping in the dirt.
He said that it was he slept really well. This is exhausting.
Maybe they had the hammocks or something. No, I don't think I slept that much. Maybe a few hours a night for the most part. Maybe a bit more in All Stars, but that's a whole nother story.
All right. Well, we've been criticizing people the whole time. I have been. You haven't been. I found this really hard. I've been
nice, Harry.
You haven't. I hate to paint us both. Don't take that out of context. Let's do the Chissy. I have more criticisms in the Chissy, but we will now reward people with points. Take it away, Jacob Sega-Weinstein and MC Color.
2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's getting kind of Chissy. 3, 2, 1. 1.
Oh, I almost got that perfect. Do you want to go first?
Look, I'm undecided at this point. Everyone is very like in the middle, and then we've obviously been talking about like the pros and cons, because it's like Rome has done a lot, has a lot of power, but it's like, what's more important? Because I'm only on for 1 week. Should I just be basing my Chissy votes on the here and the now, or am I supposed to be doing it on the moves that will benefit people's overall game? Because I don't think that Rome's making moves towards winning. I think he's just collecting a lot of power that's probably going to dissipate mid-merge.
I mean, it is meant to be episodic, but if you don't think that if it's episodic, but in a way that's not going to, in a way, improve his odds enough that it's impactful, then I don't think you can even credit the episode. So I don't know. Like, it has to be who's doing well.
Right.
If it's is doing well in a very like significant way for the medium to long term, like that might be episodic for you. You know what I'm doing? Does that make any sense? What I'm trying to, like that might be what doing well this week meant for you.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go first?
All right.
You go first.
You go first, but I think I've got my votes.
All right. I found it really tough. I'm going to give 3 points to Rome, as I said. Big pros and cons. I think using the advantages to gain allies has been very good. He comes back from the journey. He tells them about it. It works, through some sort of combination of fear, intimidation, and loyalty, which Teeny does say, like, if we're giving them all the power, we think we can control them. I don't know that they can, but they think they can. And he's given that trust in a way that has won them over and also overwhelmed them. And I have to credit that. He's always doing the most, and it's working for now. I don't think it's a game that can win, but if he can play any type of winning game, it's this. It's doing the most for just running the fastest for 26 days. If it exists, it's this. And so I have to credit that when it's at its best. And I think it worked really well here, and that he has the power. Good to go on the trek to push for that, to take that risk. I have to say, as I've said, the social game is not good. The self-awareness, when he calls TK arrogant, very concerning. The fact that he thinks he's lying well about losing the vote and no one believes him, very bad. He doesn't realize everyone can tell he's found the idol. Not good either. I've just got a list here. Later, he's trying to sell that the idol is from the journey. They all know it's not. In the conversation with Sol, even when Sol's like, but wouldn't you be trying to bluff me? And he's like, no. And then he comes back to them and he's like, that went very well. So concerning. Putting up people with the fish. So many things are all
There's
really
a lot to criticize and a lot to praise.
And he's still going to get 3 points. And I think as well, it's like, another thing I will credit is that he could have assured this by playing both of the trinkets, by playing the vote steal to make sure they can't split, by playing the idol. Because at that point, I think even Teeny's plan in my mind, even the one I came up with, would be done. But I think he needs the vote steal. He gets it done without the vote steal. And I want to credit that he reads that he doesn't need the vote steal, but I can never credit his read. So what I will credit is the bravery, the faith, and just barreling through with some amount of risk and all of the intensity to have, I think, a huge amount of power right now. And I think he's the most powerful person in the tribe now. And I think he got that done this week. So I'm giving him 3 points, despite the many, many, many issues. That's 3 points. 2 points, I didn't know either. I'm going to give it to Genevieve, who is someone fittingly, I think we've barely spoken about in this podcast, even though she's a big part of this, but we're not seeing it. And I was talking about this with Omer and Zach, and they thought, like, do they really want to work with Genevieve over Sol or Asia? If so, I think that's crazy. If that was what contributed to Teeny and Keyshawn's thinking about what they wanted to do, I hugely disagree, because I think that Rome, Genevieve, and the advantage that they've left with them are way too powerful. And I think that you'd want to work with Asia and Sol anyway. But even without that, I think even if you slightly wanted to work with Genevieve more, that duo with an advantage and the capacity to find more is way too dangerous. So if that was any part of it, I hugely disagree. I have to credit Genevieve just in case it was, we did see a bit of a connection with Teeny in week 1. And there has to be some workability there. Like, they are making this choice on workability, and I don't think it's really with Rome. So maybe Genevieve is like the Trish to his Tony. And I'm having to surmise a lot because she is very purple. If it was social and they chose Genevieve, then she is being done so dirty in the edit and she is like a social queen. And even so, I wish we got more from her to kind of understand this, but choosing Genevieve and the power she now has with Rome and the win that they've got together and any contribution that she had socially towards that, I'm going to give 2 points to, even though I'm having to surmise a lot of it. And then I'm going to give a point to Andy. It felt like kind of a cute, like 1 point thing, giving over Shot in the Dark to Sierra, I thought was great. It worked for Sierra. Rob was talking about this a bit in Know-It-Alls about like, you might give it to someone, like if you were to give it to a Gabe would be like, and now I voted you out because I want you Shot in the Dark. But I think that giving it to Sierra, we see that it works, that it's making that social connection, and it's with a group that didn't split on John. So a group that's not so worried about like Shot in the Dark that you could go the anti-social way. Like I might use my Shot in the Dark, and then are you going to split on me, or you can't split on me? Like now, are you scared of me? And he could have done that, but I think this group isn't as scared of Shot in the Dark and will kind of, go through that and take that small risk. So without wanting to bluff it and that being very antisocial, he chooses, I think, the much better social path.
It was so interesting to see that it really worked as well. And like you see like the different confessionals and Sierra's like, oh, I don't really trust him, like, which is fair enough. Yeah. But then that he just went above and beyond to really push it, and like it really did actually lock it in. And I think sometimes you just have to do that. It is a really cool thing that you can use as a tool to be like, look, like I'm not going to play my Shot in the Dark, like just to give someone confidence. Like, because it's something like if you can like demonstrate something, it's so much better than words. So for him to do that, I thought was actually really good. And
like, if he's just going to play Shot in the Dark, like then they'll just vote for him, and then he'll be immune and he won't have voted. So they'll go back to a revote, and that'll suck for the 4. But I think that they would take that risk. So he's still going to get the votes, and like 84% chance, like he will go home. So instead of that, he's, up those odds by making like a really clear connection and not relying on the tiny chance and using it socially. And it's novel. And I know Emily did it, and people have kind of like been interesting with the Shot in the Dark before, but I like that he went out of his way and did it with the right person with Sierra. So I'm giving him a point. And I'm interested to hear your point, because I feel like these are all very episodic. Like, do I think that Andy is doing the best in Gotta to get a point, the one Gotta point? No. But I think this episode we saw, like with the observational skills and how he was kind of using that, I thought was good. He's obviously getting to narrate it. I think he's building back. So it's like one episodic point. Rome is very, episodic. I don't know that it's a long-term game, but it's working now. Genevieve's part of that. So mine are very episodic. So I'm interested to see where you go with the Chissy.
All right.
That's where I went.
Here's my votes. And unfortunately, I haven't put Genevieve on here, even though she's doing very well, because I didn't see anything. It's just one of those unfortunate things. So gonna say Teeny, 3 Chissies, and you might not like that. But
I'm surprised. I mean, I think I'm only halfway through Know-It-Alls, but Stephen was gonna give Teeny the fishy, and that really surprised me too.
I like the play. I think and some of it as well is just the episode. Like you get to see the full thought process. She was testing people. She was checking for ramifications. She was checking how people would react to things. She was really gauging how people interact with her, how she can work with them. She's trying to gain as much knowledge out of one single thing as possible. So I like that. I think that, to me, looking at all the numbers, it looks like the boring safe play, but evaluating every single thing, I would probably go that way.
Well, she didn't evaluate doing the live 2-2-2 and then changing on. It's fine. Don't worry. Like,
taking all the power for yourself. I don't know if I want that. Like, yeah, it's a good resume buffer, but I probably would rather take a strong 4 with a lightning rod. I like the idea of a lightning rod in a very fast 18-person season. Again, it depends on the context. If I'm in an Australian Survivor season, maybe not. Maybe just seize power. And
not pissing off Rome, I think, is a big thing as well.
Yeah. And to me, like, he's the one that will take everything personally and just go crazy. And he's also the person where you can just blindside him, merge, and find some other connections. So I don't mind that from Teeny at all. I think there was the whole process of doing things properly, checking for how things would kind of play out, and then making a decision. It was a decisive decision, and you've got a buffer and you've got a lightning rod to be a shield for at least a little while. Maybe not very long, but I like that play. Rome has to get 2 votes, even though a lot of praise, a lot of things you could criticize. He's playing aggressively. He's playing hard. Like, you can never, ever say that he's not giving it everything, which I like. Like, he's trying to be a part of every single thing. He's backing it up with good performances. Like, he is doing well in everything that he actually does, except for, you could say, social game. But maybe it's just not in him to take a backward step. Like, it's just who he is as a person. So have to give him 2 votes. He's playing the way he plays, which might not get him the win, but it's working for him. And he'd have to strong arm the entire game from start to finish. We've seen that it's happened before. I don't think he can, but we've seen it happen. 1 vote, I wasn't sure. Can I ask a question before I do it? Garda doing their puzzle. Was it just me, or did Rachel just like dominate it?
Yes. I mean, they didn't start it first.
And then they basically caught up to first.
They won, like and then they won.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm giving it to Rachel there at 1 point, because those puzzles in reality are nightmares. Like, they are not. They're not good. It's like you've got this challenge, and it's like, yeah, you've got the start bit. It still just comes down to the puzzle. That puzzle is rough, and like a seahorse. Like, it's something that they probably haven't ever seen before. You've got patterns, but then it looks like it's the same color scheme going the whole way up. You don't know the shape of it necessarily. You don't know exactly what it is starting. It's not like it's an obvious one where it's like, oh, like you just look at the flag and it's the same symbol. Like, it was a seahorse and you have to build it from the start up. Like, you can't even do other things. So I'm giving a point to shout out to some actual challenge prowess. I feel like on top of that, like, she's in an actual good place in Garda. Like, we haven't seen a lot, but it's the sort of thing where she's in a duo, and they might be on the bottom as a duo, but she's not the one that's like actively being worked against. And she doesn't seem to have a bad relationship with anyone either. She seems to be making reasonable connections with people. Never sort of like heard a sort of bad step from her. So she can have 1 point as well.
I like that. I mean, I think that Matt said last week, Rachel's his winner pick, and like you're seeing that in her as well. And I think it's hard because this is her first point on the Chissy board, but she has been doing well. It's just like the dynamics have kind of been elsewhere, and we've kind of been looking at more like what Sam is doing. We kind of had the stuff with her and Andy in the first episode. So we've seen like kind of like smaller negative things, but like generally, I think she is doing well. And like, again, like, yeah, making up the space and the challenges when they voted out John from a challenge perspective and have not lost since. Even though Andy, to be fair, they kept Andy from a challenge perspective and he did kind of screw things up, but like they have as a tribe been able to kind of make that up, and they've made good or not being the disaster tribe that I thought they might be in keeping Andy. So yeah, we'll kind of see where it goes from that. So the points are Teeny and Sue are both tying on 9. Rome and Sam are then on 5, and then we've got Jen on 2, we've got Andy on 2. Well, we've got Rachel on 1 and Asia left on 1, and I think that's correct. Do you have a winner pick, by the way? Do you have someone you think is going to win?
I've been wrong with Edgic. I don't read Edgic that well anymore. But going off it, I'm going to say Sue. Like,
but what about from a game? Like, do you think Sue will actually win? Or is that just it?
I feel like she's got strong enough convictions that she'll make a good talker at any given tribal. I think her negatives are actually going to work positively for her. I don't think she really has it in her to really threaten people in terms of like idols and that sort of thing. But I think that'll just become a pro. Like, I think she'll just sort of shoot through due to perceived lower threat. I do think she has the possibility to actually be an undercover, very good individual challenge person. Like, we'll have to see that, but I think she basically has the correct types of strengths and weaknesses where the weaknesses actually just end up being fine. She's already got an absolute ride or die partner, and she's got a couple of other sort of people on her side. So I feel like she would be the one that would really just sort of like shoot through and then actually have a lot of strengths that benefit the end game. So I'm going to go Sue.
Amazing. Well, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you, Harry. Thank you for coming here on Moving Weekend.
That's all right.
I really enjoyed our
very
discussion.
much-
I feel like this week was kind of driving me crazy in that there was just so much, and I feel I don't know that I feel like I found solutions with you, but I feel like if anything, it created more questions, but like still, it was.
I think question marks are okay. I think it's okay to not have a decisive this is correct or this is incorrect, and I think that's what makes this game, even after decades, a really cool thing. So I think we keep the question marks. There's the unknown.
Yeah. Where can people find you? You're not really tweeting about the show, really.
Not at the moment. I don't think people can find me.
You can find you here every October.
Find me randomly.
No, we'll do it quicker than October. That makes me feel sad that I'm not meaning to do that.
You can find me on Twitter. I will randomly tweet about reality shows. It's been a bit of a buffet recently. We've had The Circle, we've had The Challenges season 40. It's like a really big milestone one. Survivor's been cool. Australia vs. the World is coming. So it's a big time for reality TV.
And if the spoiler cast is to be believed, we won't go into it, but you've played with a lot of people on that tribe.
Yes, I have. It's weird. It's weird seeing so many people that I've talked to and played with in one season.
Yeah, like that's the majority of that tribe, if that's the tribe. So crazy stuff. A lot of Survivor is going to be happening in 2025. Right now, you can find me at Shannon Gates. Follow, subscribe to the International Survivor RHAP podcast. This is on YouTube. I meant to say that last week, and I meant to say it earlier than this. If you've listened to it, it's too late for this one, but like I'm trying to put up the YouTube numbers. This is on video now. So we got Harry, bright and early on Moving Weekend, his smiling face. That's something you can check out. So please, watch it on YouTube and listen to it. Do both. Help the numbers. No, I don't need to beg. It's fine. Thank you for listening. I have next week. I have Teresa from South Africa. She's going to be my guest. She's clearly not on Australia versus the World, or she's been very busy lately. She'll be my guest next week. I also have an article coming out, I think tomorrow, on The Confessional, which is kind of controversial. I'm kind of anxious about it, but I've been working on it for months, and I've poured like all of my analysis into it. I can see that Kevin is audio noting me. I assume it's still going out tomorrow. It's just finalizing the article. It is about the jury. Okay, I thought let's talk about the most controversial thing. Let's get people talking. Let's be a lightning rod. Let's be Rome on this. So there's an article about that I've truly poured like months of analysis and thought into. Yeah. So it's gonna. I'm very anxious about it, but I'm really, really proud of it. So I think that's coming out tomorrow. So that's what's happening. And follow, subscribe, watch on YouTube, all the things. Harry, thank you so much. This was such a fun time.
That's all right. It's always good to chat about the pros, the cons, the positives, the negatives. And I'll get back to tweeting soon. I'll share a couple of things.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to our team behind the scenes. And I will see you next week. Bye.
Cool. Bye, everyone.